Hello and welcome back to Education on Fire. Great to be back with you again live. It's always so exciting to be live. That's the opportunity for us to interact. So if you are live and you would like to put a comment, ask a question, let us know what you're up to. Always really excited to be able to do that. That's one of the great things about being here in real time. Delighted to be able to chat to Yvonne very quickly. We're going to bring her on and she's going to be talking about LocaeRise, and we'll get into that. And I had the pleasure of being on her show talking about staff room stories related to Education on Fire before. So I'm really excited to sort of share my experience with that there. But just before we get started, I'm just going to take you in to a couple of things which are worth just sharing first of all. If you haven't seen or haven't heard the podcast this week, it was all about climate solutions and the fact that actually demonstrating what some of those things, so they're really it's an exciting way forward, and also how children can be part of that. Had a great conversation with Josh on that, and basically we were talking about, you know, not just blaming things on what's happened before, not actually talking about it's all going to be fine in 2030 or 2050, but actually showing what's happening in real time, and that sort of green business economy and some of the amazing things that businesses are doing now, and how young children can be part of that as their careers progress, but also in terms of the conversations that they're having and everything in there as well. So yeah, you can listen on the website as always, any particular podcast platform, all that's in, and obviously on the YouTube as well. So you can click through to there, and we've got links to Josh's website and the stuff that he's doing with Super Cool and all the media and podcasts he's doing where he's interviewing some amazing people there. So yeah, go and do check all that out at educationonfire.com, and we have all of that ready for you to listen to, which was released this week. And one other quick thing I want to mention today is the fact that the conference for reading with the National Association for Primary Education is next week. It's on Friday, May the 8th. It's going to be in association with Bedfordshire University. So if you're around and you're in that area and you're free next week, there are still places available. So do please come along and take part in that. It's a great event. It's only £60 to come for the entire day. It's only £50 if you're a NAPE member, and we've got a keynote lecture, as you can see there, and then we've also got workshops which you can sign up to, two in the morning, two in the afternoon, and you can pick and choose what they are. But if you go to, as it says there, educationonfire.com/reading, it will take you to this page, and you can read all about the people that are talking, the keynote lecture, all that kind of stuff, and then you can click through and book as well. So yeah, it's a really exciting thing that really proud to be part of. Is obviously Education on Fire is sponsored by the National Association for Primary Education, but also I'm currently vice chair as well, so I have the opportunity to be able to sort of link these two things together and really sort of enjoy being able to sort of help not just the students that are part of the university as well, but any local teachers that want to come along as well. So there you are. So that's going to be on Friday the 8th of May next week, and as you can see there, it's sort of 9:30 till 4 o'clock. So enough about what we've been doing and all those things related to Education on Fire. Let's bring on Yvonne and we can talk about the amazing project company that she set up. We talk a lot about how community and how people work together in school, out of school, businesses can come together to make education and actually the future of our children brighter, I think, and actually that working together gives us a guiding light for that. So Yvonne, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to bring you on now to say hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Mark, thank you so much for having me.
So,
sorry, it's just a reminder reminding me about my children.
reminded me we need to be on a show. Yes. Fantastic. We chatted a couple of months ago, didn't we? You very kindly invited me on to talk about Education on Fire on your show. So why don't we first sort of start there? What are those conversations that you're having related to what you're doing there at LocaeRise, and why are those conversations important?
Yeah, by the way, Mark, we had such good fun, and I hope we're going to have you back again. And yeah, very kindly, you've invited me to your show now for us to continue a little bit of the conversation we started. If I can kind of throw my mind back to our initial conversation and what we're talking about in regards to education and community. A lot of what we do starts with education and community. LocaeRise actually began as a community initiative. Initially, it was born out of my frustrations as a former teacher trying to sell a product that a lot of teachers had said they really thought would help them. It was a product that would help with assessment and making sure that teachers did a lot less assessment. I really struggled to get it into school. I had no network. I'd spent 10 years in the classroom, so I didn't know any head teachers or deputy head teachers, and therefore getting it into enough schools was very, very difficult. I was fortunate enough to get some money from Innovate UK, and then working with a community of volunteers, we were able to do some research, and we found out that a lot of other sellers were struggling with the same problem. They had lots of innovative products, but they really struggled to get them into schools. So I used something that I had learned from my mom and my dad. So I'm originally, if you hear my funny accent, I'm originally from Kenya, and my students used to say I speak Swanglish, Swahili English. um, and in Kenya, we have a concept called Harambe. Now, Harambe just means the community pulling together. When you have difficulty, your community comes together and they support you in your times of difficulty. So I was a product of Harambe. Many, many years ago, my sister had passed away. I had just come from university. I was really young. I'd gone to stay with her. And in the middle of the night, she complained she was ill. I went to help her, and the next thing we knew, she'd passed away. I then fell into a depression. My parents didn't know what to do with me. They knew I loved learning. And so they went to the community and they said, let's put some money together and let's send her somewhere where she can do what she loves doing, which is study. And that's how I ended up in the UK. So in my moment of difficulty, I'm bringing up a company, I turned to Harambe. So I went to my community, a lot of young volunteers, and we pulled together, and that's how LocaeRise was born. So it was during that moment of difficulty that we ended up with a tech company. No money, bootstrapped, but Harambe. And that's what we love about community, how we can come together to help each other. And LocaeRise has now created what we call school-backed commerce, and it's about communities supporting their local schools. Every time you shop, you can round up, and the roundup then goes to support your local school. So it's a whole it's a whole circle that's come back from what we're doing.
And I think what I loved the most when I first came across this was the sense of, like, say, not just bringing people together and understanding how that worked, but the fact that whether you're someone who's looking to get into schools, you're then matching with schools, and it's that kind of like-minded idea of what you're trying to do rather than just a cash handout or just one particular thing. You can sort of work on things together. So sort of take me a little bit into what makes that difference than, like you say, just someone donating something sort of arbitrary, as it were, as opposed to actually sort of working on one particular project.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, Mark. So it's multi-layered. Um, the big pain, I think, for a lot of people is when you've come up with an innovative solution, you try and get into schools, that's your first hurdle. And that's where LocaeRise Match comes in. But it's not that schools don't want good sellers or don't want good products or don't want innovative ideas. Schools also struggle to find those innovative ideas because schools have so many problems. So the first thing for us, and this is something that we found out when we did a pilot with head teachers we did a pilot with Kent head teachers. They say to us, we have so many needs, we don't know what to focus on in order for us to get help. And so the first instance is to help the schools actually identify what they need to focus on. And we call that their one big change. So the schools will say maybe a one big change in 2026. I spoke to a head teacher this week. He said, we have a lot of SEN students, and so we need a new way to be able to reach them. We have all this extra space in our school. We'd love to find out or to speak to different building companies in order for us to know how to utilize that space. So that becomes the one big change. It's special education needs, and then we name that. And from that, we can go and match them with innovative companies. So we'll put a few companies in front of them, and then they can start those conversations. So that's LocaeRise Match. When those conversations begin, they usually submit a proposal. So they'll submit a proposal, different companies will submit a proposal, and the schools will then choose which vendor to hear from. That brings the noise down, because a lot of the times the schools have so many different people trying to reach them, and what they do, they essentially just stop and they work with somebody who their local school or somebody around that with them has been dealing with. But this enables them to see lots of different innovative solutions, and then they choose who to match with. First step down. Now, the next thing becomes, how do you prove yourself to the school? And lots of people end up doing free pilots, which again becomes very difficult. How do you scale a business when you have to consistently carry on doing free pilots, or you have to wait months to get paid? And that's where school backed commerce comes. If a parent or a grandparent or someone linked to the school is doing some shopping, or they're using their local bank, they can round up at the checkout, and that money can then go to supporting that pilot or that seller that the school has matched with. And from that, then we're able to also help the local community, because now more local businesses can be able to come up. If you've got a really good successful pilot, then the school can then choose to work with you, and they can be able to know that they will afford your services.
And how do you find having these conversations on both sides of the coin? I mean, it must be fascinating, like I say, because you've got your sort of educator's hat on, you know what it was like to be in the school system, and then a business owner, ed tech, understanding the needs of the companies as well. It must put you in a sort of a unique position. But I guess the way you phrase those conversations, or how you approach both sides of that coin, is going to be slightly different.
Oh, it has to be, yeah. In fact, we put out 2 newsletters every week, 2 blogs, and 2 emails, and those help us to be able to relate with sellers and schools. Um, because the more you put something in writing and then you get some feedback from it, the more you know it's landing. So that's one way we do it. The other way, it's just consistently talking to lots of different people. So I've been doing a lot of one-on-one. I'll go for different events. I go for lots of conferences. We collect lots of leads. Lots of people approach me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been brilliant. Every week I'll have near 10 people come to me from LinkedIn, either sellers or schools. And then the other side of that is we also have our weekly webinar that we usually hold in my kitchen with Yvonne. And from that, I normally speak with vendors as well as head teachers. And I think it's just like anything, the more you speak to people, the more you know their pains. As much as, yes, I have been a seller, yes, I've been an educator, but you can't get out of touch with it when you haven't been doing it. So it's just a matter of constantly speaking to lots of different people. The other side of that, and it's a bit of on the extreme end, we are doing what we call one big change expert driven workshops. So we have a workshop with a new paradigm. So for example, we have the joy of not knowing as one of our expert workshops. From that workshop, we work with a minimum of 10 schools. Now, that in itself gives you a lot of different schools to speak to, and then also the expert, and those are sponsored as well. So you have 2 vendors on one end, if you like, one who's a sponsor, one an expert, and then the 10 schools. And it's just a matter of constantly speaking to different people and then knowing the approach to take.
I think that's really fascinating, and I think the other thing that you mentioned early on, which I think is probably the most key takeaway that I hear a lot, is the fact that, like you say, there are many companies and vendors that want to and have a project which is amazing, that would really help the school or really be supportive, but it all gets caught in the email barrage. Schools are completely swamped by a million things. So to have a platform, to have a place where, like you say, you can actively go and seek it in your terms if you're a school or a vendor, to know that you're able to there to be showcased in a way, like you say, around a conversation that like we're having today about how we can all work together as a community. It just changes the whole feeling of it. Is it rather it being difficult and a hard thing to do, and sort of trying to shoehorn your way into something which is not quite working, as the education system sort of feels like that sometimes in terms of that collaboration piece. Actually, all the people that come together under this sort of umbrella are actually all on the same page and looking for the same thing and to help each other.
That's the idea. That's the idea. If the schools have named their one big change, for example, special education needs, we had this week or last week, we had a school where they're a faith school. They feel their curriculum has, sort of is sort of still behind, and they're having a lot of low-level disruption. They weren't quite sure what to do about it, and we put them in touch with a vendor who had a new, innovative product. The product was going to help them identify where the students were struggling. It was based around STEM. And in itself, it was exciting because as the students are learning and answering questions, this product was then prompting the students, how to answer different questions using AI. And then from there, it was challenging them. Why don't you try this? So that then becomes an exciting thing. The school didn't even realize they could do that to improve their curriculum. And the students are then happy from it. So it's, because the conversation is starting from this place where the school have named their one big change, they're able to get such better results when they speak to vendors, because the vendors are then tailored to, hopefully as much as possible. It doesn't always work, but as much as possible to what the school are looking for. And when it doesn't work, then, they get better solutions, they get better recommendations. The better our AI gets as well, the better the solutions for the vendors, for the schools, and then the better the prompting for the vendors to contact the schools as well.
So you were sort of saying LinkedIn's obviously an important thing. I found it really valuable in terms of, say people wanting real conversations and real interest and real understanding of what's happening in that sort of education space. Is it sort of head teachers that you're mainly having these conversations with, or are you able to sort of have conversations with people who are not necessarily making all the decisions, but are able to sort of articulate something in a way to then take it to their senior leadership to say, I've heard about this possibility, and you sort of be able to sort of find a way to work with you and be part of it without just speaking to the head teacher or that being your sort of first point of call?
I'd love to speak to more than just head teachers. At the minute, maybe it's because of the weekly webinar that we hold, and the fact that most of the conversations seem to start from there. So Terry, who we work with, usually is the one who will approach, different people, and then from those people, they'll then come and approach me. And because of the weekly webinar, most of the times it turns out that it's head teachers or deputy head teachers or some sort of school leaders that we end up talking to. I'd love to talk to a wider group of, breadth of people. And, one of the things I feel will be really useful would be for schools to have champions,
Mm.
when they're in this conversation. If a head teacher, for example, is attending one of our one big change expert workshops with a champion, those are they're much more powerful, and because it's easy to translate to exactly what is happening on the ground in the school as well.
Yeah, and I think that sort of brings in that sort of community and collaboration idea again, doesn't it? Because, like you say, it's the senior leadership that are going to be ultimately making these decisions in terms of actually saying, yes, we're going to partner in this way, or we're going to take the direction. But I've heard sort of quite a lot of conversations recently about that kind of sort of almost disseminating some of these things where it's not just top down, but it can be bottom up, and it's just about having all of these conversations together and starting to work together in I guess in a sort of a more global sense. And what that means is that all of our opinions are really important. They all have a good equal say, and it's just the way that we can then collaborate within that and take those things forwards. And I think it's a new thing within education a little bit, but maybe it's something which I think is going to be a really positive step forward. And I think the more that happens, I think the more we can make the most of the opportunities. And I guess that's probably the most important factor.
Yeah, and one of the things we're doing with the One Big Change workshop, so we have them over 3 terms through the whole year. So one cohort of 10 schools will usually start with the top, so a head teacher who selects their champion to come to the One Big Change workshop. Then the next one in the next term, we then have the head teacher and the champion train the rest of their leadership team. So on this new concept. So if we go back to, say, the joy of not knowing, or one of our other experts is bringing something called trail. trail into schools that involves well-being and running and all these lovely things. So we hold the initial workshop with the head teacher and their champion. The head teacher and the champion then get the training to then go and work with their leadership team. But there's also some questions and some things that they're held to account on to make sure everybody is getting on board with this. And then the middle leadership and the rest of the leadership team then work with the rest of the school to bring the whole community into it. So it becomes a whole process. And at the end of that, there's an accreditation the school will then receive. So it's almost like they have to pass for them to say, yes, we have embedded this, we have the whole school community involved in this. And everything is always about that village. It's not just the head and the top leadership team, but also the management, and then further down in the third term, involving the rest of the stakeholders, the governors, the parents, the teachers. But there's all sorts of different expert workshops. We have some for migrant families, for example. We have some for bringing the family more into school. All sorts. We have a waiting list of 13 workshops so far, and it's growing every week for this one big change. It's all about bringing that community into what's happening within the school.
Yeah, I really love that, and I think we met just after the Bet show, didn't we? Back in I think that was the original sort of one of the original sort of conversations that we had. How did you find suddenly be in a place where there are loads and loads of ed tech companies there, lots of people with stands, lots of people giving workshops and that sort of thing? Was there a common theme that you kind of related with, or did you kind of feel like you were able to create something slightly outside of the box? Because I think my takeaway is that at Bet there's lots of conversations about how important tech can be for students, for education moving forward as well. But I'm not sure I quite ever had the conversations like we're having here about that real sort of 360 understanding about how your organisation fits in so many different dimensions and how everyone can collaborate in the way that we're doing. I'm just curious as what was your experience of having spoken to so many people on that couple of days?
Oh my God, a bet. You know what? When we were going for bed, let me make you laugh a little bit. We actually considered having these little packs, like well-being packs, to hand over because I'd done bet in a previous lifetime, and I was thinking by the end of bet, your feet are tired, your back's paining. Let's put together some like health packs and give them out. Well, it didn't quite work, but come together. Yeah, but I think the one thing I really love about that it's I haven't found any conference like that yet, where there is so many people that you can talk to in such a short period of time. But we didn't get to speak to a lot of schools, and I don't know whether that's because we didn't have a standard bed. We just went to bed for all those days and just spoke to as many people as possible. But I think it's brilliant. Having bed is fantastic. It's a really good place to meet. I think the challenge becomes the follow up, right? Not the conversations don't quite pick up, from Bet, and I think that's maybe where much then came in, because after Bet we had over 54 people that we had to do follow ups with. I think because it just resonated, and it's quite challenging that relentless follow up
Yeah.
that happens afterwards. But it's brilliant because we got to meet Mark.
Yeah, exactly, and I think you're right. There almost needs to be sort of a tier coming down after you've been to an event like that, because everyone's sort of hyped and they're really excited and you've had great conversations, and then, like I say, then it sort of becomes sort of almost disconnected because it is a follow-up based on a conversation, but then lots of people are in the same position. You almost sort of need like 2 or 3 sort of holding areas, whether that's an online Zoom call or a conference or a kind of sort of a place to sort of keep the excitement going, even though we've sort of gone back into our sort of normal day-to-day lives, without it feeling like it's then just another email follow-up or just another connection on LinkedIn. There's something a little bit more personal that kind of takes that sort of, like I say, we were here at Bet and now we're not, and have something sort of halfway between that kind of keeps the personality going, I think is probably what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, maybe what should happen, Mark, after bed? A series of webinars. You should, this kind of conversation, lots of them, where lots of different people come on board, and just keep it going until the next bet.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Whether that's back in London the following year, or one of the Asia, or America next year, or whatever, that will
Yeah,
be exciting
Brazil.
too. Yeah, exactly, exactly that. Now, let me just take us into your website, because then I can just sort of show people a little bit about what they can see if they go onto your website. So links to the website, links on how to get in contact with you, and that sort of thing are in the description, so people can go and look at that. But in terms of people sort of looking round your website when they first come in, where's the place you'd like them to sort of maybe look at specifically, or a page where you think would be a good sort of initial landing stop, to sort of find out some of the things that we've spoken about?
I think if we just go up a little bit,
Yeah,
the story is a good one. I hope a lot of people can relate with that. But if you maybe just below this, where it says workshop,
yeah,
one
there,
big change
yeah,
workshop. That's the workshops we've been talking about. And if you click on the workshops, it will open the one big change workshops, and that tells you a lot more about the expert driven workshops, and also the workshop that we have coming up next month. There will be a few other workshops coming on there very, very shortly. And that kind of explains how the experts come in, what we do with them, the process involved with the workshops, the benefit of schools coming on board and working with these experts, and the benefit for different vendors sponsoring the workshop. So that's one place I would say might be useful for anybody who would like to engage on the one to many. And then the one to one, if we went back to LocaeRise and the homepage on LocaeRise, um, so we just went back.
yeah.
And if we click on the logo, yeah,
Here
that's
we
it.
go.
So if you are selling into schools, so if you're a seller and you're selling into schools, if you went there and you just said I am a, and then you selected it, it will open, and then gives you the option to either choose if you're a seller, if you're a school, or also if you're a group of schools as well. It also gives you that option, and then you can then choose to match. Yeah, so you register and then you then go in and match with a school, or if you're a school, you match with a vendor. But if you that hopefully it makes sense. This is all about building connections, for schools to find innovative solutions, and connections for innovative solutions to be found by schools and to grow their businesses as well.
I think it's great, and sort of like we were just saying about Bet, having something to do next. They might be listening to this, having a great, yeah, this is a great idea, but just sort of encouraging people that go on there, click on the website, and then you've just literally seen there the places to push, the places to actually go, and actually find out more, and get in touch, and sort of have those next conversations, and get your school, or if you're a vendor, get in touch and be able to start making those collaborations work as they go through. So let's just sort of round off a little bit in terms of what's your plan going forward in terms of capacity. Are you looking to have sort of every company and every school involved? Are you looking at certain areas? Is it a UK thing? Is it a global thing? What's that sort of bigger picture and understanding of what you're trying to achieve?
Oh, wow. It's like being given a blank check. Thanks, Mark. We love those. Yeah, but I'm a big believer in concentrating efforts, and working to a project that we can measure results. So we're currently building. So if I just take a step back, last year we won Startup of the Year, with the Precious Community, and the Precious Awards. I work with Santander. What that meant was there was somebody that finally said, "We really believe in what you're doing, and the opportunity that presents within education." This year, we've actually been nominated for 3 awards. And again, it tells us that there is a lot of need for what we are doing, and because of that, um, we're finding that some really important collaborations are coming together. So off of the back of the award last year, one of the connections was through the head of global HR for Apple. I know she wouldn't mind me saying this because we just came in today from Apple. And what we're looking to do is work with the local council around where the Apple offices are to start working with the schools around there and our expert workshops so that we can see, all these different paradigms from all these different experts up and down the country. What results can be produced when we have all these different paradigm shifts introduced within an area and then scaled up? Because we know that there's problems in schools. We know that there's a lot of change happening very, very fast in schools. It's highly unlikely that the solution will come from one central place, because there isn't a one size fits all solution in education. The schools are as varied and as different as you can have sometimes your fingerprints sometimes. And so we want to see all these different experts, whether it's a well-being expert, whether it's like JONC, where it's, how do you bring in the whole school in creating rules rather than children don't like being told what to do anymore. Yeah, so the JONC philosophy is about bringing in a philosophical approach to running a school. Is that one of the solutions? Is it something like Trail Farm, where it's about getting children out there and them running as a well-being solution, a little bit of time away from the screen? Is it about an influx of migrant families, and maybe there not being solutions around that? Is it about bringing family more closely aligned into schools because they've been so far removed from it? All these different solutions, all these different experts, if we work with them in a concentrated area like Wandsworth, and then can we then scale that up to the rest of the UK? So for this kind of like the remaining of this term, that's going to be what our focus is on, these expert workshops, and working with this initial cohort of schools to see how many of these 13 experts we can deploy in one area, and then curating all this, because we work with the universities as well. And then we work with LocaeRise Match. So we can get insights, we can get case studies, people can leave reviews. Really, we can see what the real effect is, because it's all going to be recorded onto the platform. So that's our focus coming up.
I love that, and I think one of the big things that I take away from that is the fact that this whole idea about everything being contextualized, isn't it? Like you say, because what works in one area is going to be different from another area, and it might literally be one street to one street because the schools are very different. Let alone if it's different parts of the country, whether it's rural, whether it's in an urban setting, whether you're on the coast, whether you're in the middle of the country. All of these things have a different bearing on what you're trying to do, and I think you painted a really clear picture there about what's possible in one particular scenario, which can then be replicated, not as we're going to do the same thing, but the concept and the way of working and the philosophy of what that is, to then sort of use that as a blueprint further afield. And hopefully that gives people a real sort of excitement about what's possible depending on what their scenario is. And yeah, as I said, do check out the website and make sure that you do that. Link is, as I said, is in the description. Yeah, thank you so much, Yvonne, for being here today. I really loved our initial conversation. I loved actually being able to sort of share what we're doing. That's the whole point of Education on Fire, is to sort of bring people together, and people who might not have known about what you were doing to then be able to do that and then find out more. So to be able to bring that in a live concept is really good. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment. We can make sure you get in touch. It's always good to sort of have these follow-ups if we can. So I'm sure we're going to have another conversation further on. It'd be great to be able to follow some of these workshops, some of these events that you're doing, and be able to sort of show that in more detail too. So we could talk about that offline as we go. But for today, Yvonne, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having us, being so generous as well with your time, and just helping spread the word really, and giving us the opportunity to do that. Really appreciate it and really appreciate you for it, Mark.
Thank you so much. I really do. Great to chat to you again. So thank you very much there to Yvonne. It's one of those things, I think, when I get a real buzz about the fact that there is something completely unique and possible in the world of education that suddenly gets exciting, and the possibilities kind of really grow and grow and grow. I think, as she put so brilliantly there, it's not going to come from one central idea. It's not going to necessarily change by a silver bullet tomorrow because the government changes tack. But I think people will start to get a sense there's a movement there. There are companies out there are people out there who are showing the way. And if enough people get on board, not because they want to do something different, but because they know this is the next step, this is something that they can actually step into, support what they're doing, support the children within their school and their local community. I think the way that the world is going to change with AI and technology, people can take a little bit more ownership while still also obviously having to do the things that you have to do within the education system as well. So hopefully this has given you a good insight into what's possible in this particular scenario. Thank you so much for joining us today. As I mentioned before, do check out everything on educationonfire.com, from the podcast to the blogs and all the things in there. And again, thank you so much to the National Association for Primary Education for their continued support of everything. If you haven't already, make sure that you've clicked the bell and of course subscribed to the channel. Then it'll keep you up to date with everything that we do, and we will be back with you again very, very soon. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.